All right. I wanted to jump back in here real quick. Grim asked a heartfelt question to me in Luke's earlier live stream, and I got distracted by an email, and I appreciated it. And I certainly didn't want it to go unnoticed. So you said some very kind words to me about me, Grim, and I accept those humbly, but don't feel as if I deserve a lot of that. But you kind of asked to have a conversation with PVK, and more specifically, you were kind of about TLC and what we're kind of doing in this flotilla, and you had mentioned kind of 12-step programs and some of those things, and kind of what my thinking was on all of that. And I think one that's a really big question. That's a really big question of what we're trying to consider. So, but I would say this, and I think it really relates to the fact that you and PVK are having this conversation. I think Chad tried to point to this a little bit earlier in the live stream, but we're really in our infancy stage. But I do want to make the point that where we're at right now is we're an online community. We found ourselves here through, most of us, through PVK's YouTube channel. There have been other channels that have popped up, yours included, Broken Clock Tower, Griz, and others. And so, seeing what Paul was doing, extending the conversation, I think Jacob's innovation of taking what used to happen in voice chats on the Discord and bringing them out into the just chattings allows people who find their way here to be able to have some of those conversations. And so, I would think one of the things that PVK is talking about explicitly right now is what are we doing? And I think really what this corner is founded around is love. I think it's the core of what we do. You had mentioned 12-step program. I think and the same is true for people who are a part of those communities, because there's something that one alcoholic can relate to in another alcoholic that is deeper than other people can have. And really, regardless of where people come, usually it's the end of the street. People may have burned every other bridge they have, and they can come into this place where people will love them for who they are. They're welcome, and it very well could be you're going to have to hear a lot of tough things and those sorts of things. I'm not saying that the AA is not rigorously honest with you, but there is this abiding principle of true care, because you know that it's life and death for that person, and so you are there for them. And there's this concept of being there to have Chad shares this poem about the hand on the door, which is to being there for the new person. People were there for you, and being there for them. So what I see what we're doing here currently right now, and so there's this big rush, and I'll get into this and do it in real life. What we're doing here is in real life. And I remember Bruno Castro talked about this mass formation psychosis and what's going on right here. And what he talked about is people needed to be beacons of light. And they just need to keep speaking. And so I think what Paul is doing and what other people are doing around here on all these channels is the first thing we're doing is we're setting out beacons of light. And people are finding their way here. They're seeing people talk about things in a way that they aren't seeing that are happening out in the culture, or they see them talking about difficult things, whether it could be around spirituality or other things. And it seems like people are having conversations, and they're asking the really hard questions that you want to ask, and they haven't gotten good answers for. But they know what's being offered out there also is not the answer either. And so they're seekers. I think a lot of people get God, and they don't know what that means for them, but there's something about that. And so I think what we need to continue to do, like in this flotilla, what are we doing is continue to be beacons of light. Doing what we're doing what you're doing, continuing to do those things, and have that to follow. In addition, I think we need to, what we're already doing, and Paul does a great job of this, seems to be leading in my eyes, is continuing to point people to other people's channels. because they might find themselves in the algorithm to find you, and all of a sudden they're interested now. And this happens, I think, by having people on the channels to talk, and they can do that. But start pointing them to the other beacons so they can start expanding their way and seeing it. I think in this online realm, and let's just stay here right now, I think some of the beautiful things are what are happening is so when we're continuing to do this is encouraging people to continue to tell their stories of how this corner is impacting. And a lot of what is happening is not just what's happening on YouTube, and I'll get into my comment about Discord here in a minute, but people are finding their way to have conversations offline. So for example, I have sought out people that through the TLC and find a way to connect with them, whether it be via an email or whether it would be in a Discord DM, or find them someplace if I wanted to make a connection with them and a contact, then I do that. And I think we want to encourage people to tell those types of stories, because some people have found their way to me, whether it be around addiction issues or other things might happen that it's not appropriate maybe for them on a YouTube channel or whatever. And I've actually had real life conversations with people, and you can try and point them and connect them into maybe resources where they're at, or have some conversations that you can. So I think that there are, even in these vehicles, that there are those things that are happening, and we need to continue to do that. I would say that one of the biggest things I didn't like is people poison the well of the Discord channel. And here's why I felt like having something like that is important. Some people won't come on to a YouTube stream and they want to have a conversation, they have questions, they want connection, and there's a reason why they won't come on a YouTube stream. Some people may be willing to do that, but there are certain things that are personal. Maybe you're having an issue in your marriage, and that does not belong on the internet. But you really want to have a conversation with someone, and maybe you're getting I'll use Luke's term, a Sunday school answer, and maybe in your environment, and but you want to have some conversation around some of these things. Well, I think you need to have a place off the public internet, and I think they exist. Grim, you have the Broken Clock Tower Discord. Other people have different Discords. I personally found the Power of the Bridges of Meaning Discord, where in those voice chats there were these really dynamic conversations that were going on. And then there were smaller rooms where there were some really vulnerable conversations. The estuary was happening in that internet space. I think that's a whole. I think it's something that we're not doing right now, and maybe we need to relaunch to something else. But that's a space that is missing, because we are an online community first and foremost. The other thing when I think about estuary, which is estuary is fantastic, and John Von Donk and PVK, I mean, it's very clear if you pay attention. That's what PVK is trying to build in addition to this online community. And I think it's great. But here's the thing that I know for sure, and let's just be honest about it. There's no way that's going to scale fast enough for all the people that are coming into the beacons of light. You're just not going to get enough people in cities to start doing the protocol thing and the estuary thing well. Even if it's wildly successful, let's say we launch 15 new estuaries across the globe, successful estuaries this year. That would be an amazing number. It's nowhere close to be able to handle all their people that are finding our way through these vehicles of life. And so, yes, estuary is amazing, and we should continue to build estuary. But we need to understand that we are going to have many more people coming through this online funnel, and we need to find ways to be able to build up that community and try and do those things there. I think when Chad says we're already doing it, it's exactly right. We are really doing it. When you think about 12 steps programs and some of those things, and when we can see these patterns, and again, I think we're in our infancy stage, and I don't think that we're, quite frankly, anywhere close as a community to building something like that yet. But we are starting to do some things. We can look down the road for some of the wisdom things that they had. So, for example, immediately, one of the things that they realized and they saw, money becomes a big problem. And when you have money in control and people want to have boards and gatekeep, like that stuff becomes a massive problem. Because quite frankly, it starts to corrupt, and then decisions need to get made. It becomes this really weird thing. And So you need to have some parameters around that. There is some parameters like these ideas around anonymity and other things that have built up around that you can start practicing some of those principles now, but until you really start building a thing, it's not ready for that. So I think what's happening is that PVK and Gundog are in this infancy stage, and they're starting to do this in real life. They're finding their way. It's going to start building itself. They're going to see certain things that have certain successes. They're going to see things that aren't working. They're going to try and figure out, well, how do we do this thing? And Paul's already on it. Okay, so yeah, we have this meeting, and it's kind of haphazardly we're figuring out a way to kind of connect people where they can have the offline conversations. But there will need to maybe be a little bit of formality that comes around that. Maybe there's this way that we can practice and do things that starts to have a way that works. And so I think all of that in real life estuary stuff is very much in its infancy. Um, and so I think this is I think this the answer that I would say to this, and this is going to really frustrate people, is I think we're doing it already. It's it's coming along organically, and Paul is doing a masterful job of leading this because what he understands is there's talented people that are coming into this space, and they have ideas that he wouldn't even have, and he's watching it, and so basically he's saying, "Go do it, go do it, do whatever your thing is," and he'll shine a light on it. And if there's really some traction, and let's say somebody starts getting something going that really seems to be working, well, wow, let's all take advantage of that. So um, my encouragement would be to keep doing what we're doing. Let's continue to have the conversations we're having. Let's continue to invite people in into those conversations, so we can continue to give them an outlet. I think we have a gaping hole that we don't have more of a private online communications tool where people could come in and have that. I still think that's something that I would seem to do right now. But I think people want to speed the process up a little bit, and I think it's coming along just like it's supposed to be coming along at this point. Um, and when I say the things about estuary, I want to make it very clear. I hope you see that I think it's a fantastic thing, but it's going to be a hard thing to build, and it's going to take some time before it really is at a place where it starts to grow into what it really needs to be. And so I would encourage people to start an estuary in their town. It would be best if you have more than one person with you. Going out in twos seems to be a really good wisdom step. Um, but yeah, get out and do it. Like Chad's talking about, like if you're sitting around and you've ever thought about maybe you have a voice and start a YouTube channel. you know, we've seen people do that just recently here. If you've been lurking, jump into the conversation. If you're trying to find a way in the chat, like I think you can, like if you want to talk to someone, post a comment in the chat and say, "Hey, I'd really like to talk to this person or that person." We all know how to. A lot of us receive talking. We'll find ways to put you in connection with that person. Um, and try to get that going. Now, I know the frustrating part of this can be is, um, uh, well, it shouldn't be the frustrating part. And I think this is more of a calling. This isn't a vocation. Um, this is something that probably isn't going to, and I think in its best sense isn't going to help people to, more than likely make your money or whatever. That somebody might come up with a way and figure that out, but that's really not what we are right now. And I think lay people not having money come in and corrupt this thing would be the best thing possible. So so what I'm talking about here, I know for a lot of people would frustrate them. They want to build organization now. And I think people are doing things and start, like, for example, Jacob has started a foundation. I think that's magnificent. Yes, Jacob, go do it, build it, anybody who wants to do anything in those sorts of environments. Those are all the cool things that are come up around us. And that's, part of the TLC. But I think very much what we are around here, and Jess, when we had the Kansas City protocol, is we were wanted to provide a space. I think this would be both online, but also in the estuary, where it's a good face place where people could come to do to have conversations and do some sense making. And Jess has mentioned that one of the things he talked about sense making, uh, which was so important, is he says really that's healing. When you have these things that have been clicking around and grinding your thinking, but all of a sudden when something comes together and you have a bit of an aha moment, or you garner into that moment, or something clicks together and makes sense. A lot of times that's healing. And I think at the end of the day, I think that is healing. So I would just say one of the things that I would probably steal a little bit right now, if I could look down at a 12-step program as their tradition, um, that basically the group is that the uh, I'm trying to grab the specific piece of this. Um, it talks about that basically group purpose is a loving God as he expresses himself in our group consciousness. Like that kind of sets the tone. It doesn't tell you who God is, or it doesn't tell you what you have to believe in that, but there is this sense that there is this thing that binds us collectively, um, is around the concept of a loving God. And so I think when Paul mentions that the TLC is founded on love, I'm here because of the people, and I have grown to love the people, and I really have seen that I think this is a tool that's going to be very valuable for people. And so at the end of the day, let's continue loving one another well. Let's continue to be beacons of light. Let's to continue to try these things that we're doing. Let's don't run away from the fact that we are an online phenomenon and we can help people in real life, in these places and in these spaces that is here, as they're trying to build things up on the ground through estuary and those other things. So, any rate, you asked a very sincere and authentic question, and I felt pretty badly that I missed part of it, and just to let that go, and it was eating at my conscience. So I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to respond to you directly. So God bless you, Grim. God bless anyone else who came in to poke their head into this, and I love you all.